Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Bulletproof Pod. Today, we're going to talk about all sorts of things. We're going to talk about phone call conversions, what's going on in Trump's economy. We're going to talk about letting go of some employees. We're going to talk about what happens when you build a business too good. Right, Craig?
Yeah.
And it doesn't need you. And then kind of finding purpose in that next wave. So, buddy, it feels like I feel like it's been a while.
Yeah, I was just saying that everybody hears what you just said and be like, "Oh my God!" It's like building it's like having a wife that always wants to like please you. Like, "Oh, that would be wonderful. That's a wonderful problem to have." So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that, like, just where you are in your business right now, you will be able to get to a point. It may seem like it's really far away, because I felt like that too. But you can get to a point where your business doesn't need you, and then it's important to realize, what do you do, and what are you going to do?
It is. So we'll unpack that a little bit. And I have kind of an announcement on that forefront as well. So Craig, interestingly, I was at the Inner Circle, the Care Stack event, and I was lecturing a couple of weeks ago. And this gentleman came up to me and he said, "Dr. Boulden, can I show you some stuff?" And his name is Krishnan, and he worked for VoiceStack, which is part of CareStack's break off into kind of AI phone analytics and conversions. It integrates their platform, but it's agnostic. So you could use it. It's called VoiceStack. Okay. But so any PMS can use it. So in full disclosure, it's the first time I had seen the platform. And when he showed it to me, he was like, "Yeah, let me go get my laptop and I'll show you what I'm talking about." And I was like, "Okay." So he opens it up and shows me this beautiful dashboard of this, phone call intelligence, if you will. What do you think that my answer rate was, by the way?
Unfortunately, I know the answer to this.
Okay.
But just to slow down for a second. We spend a lot of time and money advertising and getting our patients to feel compelled enough to make that first step and create an appointment. So how upsetting is it to know that you're spending X number of dollars for an acquisition, only to realize that when they call the practice, they don't get someone answering? And it's kind of like treatment plan acceptance. We all think it's higher than it really is.
Well, I got to tell you, Craig, it's even a little bit worse than that. And some of this problem maybe is something that I put in place 8 years ago. And you're going to probably cringe when I tell you what I have. But I had a phone tree, an automated phone tree when you would call.
I do too.
So research has proven that that's no bueno. People do not like that, right? When you call the St. Regis, when you call the Ritz, you do not get a phone tree. And it's funny, you put yourself out there like, "Whoa, we're this, boutique and custom and luxury practice. Oh, welcome to the phone tree where you have to punch numbers to get a human." Yeah. So it's very disingenuous.
Your call is important to us.
Yeah, your call is important to us. It's so important that we're going to make you jump through hoops to talk to us.
Right.
Okay. So to your point, I agree. It's anyway, the answer rate was 40%. Okay. So before that time period, our new patient numbers have dwindled a little bit. And so people had asked like, "Hey, can we turn on the marketing? Can we do X, Y, and Z? Can we get a little bit of augmentation on this location, blah, blah, blah." And of course, I getting a little bit like frenetic about it. I was like, "Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, let's dig in and see what's going on." And I was like, I don't understand, because the same thing has been done over and over again. Conversions are good. Views are good. Like, things are happening. And so what wasn't on my radar was phone conversions. And so, of course, this has been a deep dive, and it's we're kind of eliminating the phone tree, I think, as of today, and digging into more phone etiquette, phone,
optimization.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is.
So, but my knee-jerk reaction, let me share a screen, is that we have this Bulletproof. This is one of those slides that I actually had at the Inner Circle, but we had this Bulletproof. Can you see it, Craig?
Huh?
Okay. So, and I said, even in the lecture, right at that same lecture, which I'm getting exposed to my anemic phone conversions, is like, "Hey, everyone's knee-jerk response is, I'm going to do advertising. Let's pay for advertising." And that is the top of this pyramid that we talk about in Bulletproof, right? And so if you're just listening to this, what I'm showing right now is just a pyramid of marketing, so to speak, right? And the base of it is the patient experience and internal marketing. And that's where kind of the phones would live. Would you agree, Craig?
Of course.
Yeah. So phone conversions. And so 3 tiers up, even me as someone seasoned, my knee-jerk response is more new patients. Let's put some money on this. And what would more money have done in this situation?
Compound your pain.
Yeah. Because it would have said, oh, this isn't working. And so it's never too late to get an ass kicking.
No, I think that should be the title of this podcast, by the way, because I want to go into mine. But yes, you're never too old to get a good old fashioned ass kicking.
But it is exhilarating. I think, and you've taught me this, is that like life is not the absence of problems. It's like better quality problems. And it's kind of fun to, especially at this plateau or this level or this tenure in my career, it's fun to feel needed and dig into things and fix things from time to time. It really is.
Of course.
So this has been somewhat challenging, and but it's really cool, and the platform is really helping tremendously. I'm excited for you to actually see it.
Yeah, I know Eric has been deep diving into it. Super cool.
Yeah. So. And the team at VoiceStack has been amazing and helpful. So really even getting us verbiage and coaching and things like that. So anyway, that's my story. That's my humble story of never too late to get your ass kicked. And yeah, speaking of getting your ass kicked, yesterday was the biggest market, the biggest down day in the market in what, like 2.5 years?
Yeah, I'm not aware. I just got little glimpses of it. So I was playing with cows yesterday, riding around an ATV.
It was good for you, right? It's sometimes, as my wife says, ignorance is bliss. She doesn't want to know things, and I'm like, that's a good place to be. So
I agree with her, by the way, because what we're talking about is assets go on sale. We all want to have a knee-jerk reaction to sell them when they go on sale. But the best thing we can do right now, if history proves us correct, is actually double down and buy more, which is antithetical to the way we're feeling. So tell me what happened, if you don't mind. Be my
well, it's just a lot of uncertainty, right? With there's Trump's plan, and some people are convinced between the tariffs, mainly the tariffs, that he's trying to crash the economy in order to reset it, right? He needs to get back to Trump's economy as opposed to just a continuation of Biden's.
Can you steelman why that would be a good idea? Why would Trump be incented to crash it? Help me understand that.
Because his ultimate goal is to get interest rates down. Right. The only way out of inflation is through prosperity, right? And through increasing GDP. When you lower interest rates, there's prosperity that happens. Businesses start investing. There's the velocity of money back into the environment, right? And so GDP is the antidote for almost everything.
Right. But didn't he, and again, part of my ignorance for this, so I'm happy we're talking about this, but didn't he ask for interest rates to be lower? Didn't he ask Powell?
But he can't. He doesn't have control over that. He can't just dictate it, right? So the Fed is church and state kind of thing,
right?
And so he can't say, "Hey, lower them," and they do it. They don't have to abide by him.
Okay, so if the market tanks, they will be forced. It's kind of like 4D
to
chess.
Inject,
they'll be forced
to lower
interest rates
as a lubricant,
will frickin' produce massive GDP.
Yep. And then
massive GDP,
and then
grow our way out of it.
Starts going crazy. And yes, we will prosperitize our way out of this, and it'll become Trump's economy, right? As opposed to the Biden. And so I think there's going to be some short-term pain. Who knows? This could put us, I'm a dentist. I am not an economist, but this could, it could be good. It could be short-term pain for long-term gain. Or it could, who knows? Markets are weird. Sentiment is weird. It could push us into a deep, dark recession for a while. Who knows?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's all emotional. So the fact that the market doesn't understand what's going to come, what's going to happen, that emotional sentiment gets priced in. So the conversation that you're having is clearly felt by the street, and the street is confused. And when the street is confused, everybody sells.
Yeah, the tariffs thing has gotten everyone rattled, right? The most, because no one really understands, and it's just a tax, and it's kind of weird. And I think everyone's just like, wait, we've never experienced this. Therefore it's risk off. Remember, I'm always like risk on, risk off. It's risk off right now. And people are kind of going to capital. And so there's a lot of selling in Bitcoin, selling in stocks. I mean, Tesla got murdered, 20% down.
So let's take a pause here, because the one time that when COVID hit and the world shut down was March of 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
The S&P took a massive hit. I don't know if this is correlated to that level of downside, but I knew better intellectually than to sell. And what did I do? I bought the largest single position of the S&P 500 VTI, the ETF of VTI. I bought the largest position I've ever done in my life. And then that night I went for a walk with my wife, and my wife is like, what the F are you doing?
Right.
The world is shutting down.
Right.
You can't buy that. That's the craziest thing you've ever done. I woke up the next morning and sold 80% of it back, or I kept 20%. And she's like, that's crazy. And intellectually, I knew that when assets go on sale, like they are today of this recording, what do we all do as investors? We run with the crowd. And you always say, Peter, when people are running, they tend to drop things. So people are panic selling. And if you have a long enough horizon, you want to buy now. And had I kept all of my investment in VTI, I'd be up like 300%. Crazy.
Well, so, Warren Buffett has the famous quote you hear about, when there's blood in the streets, you need to buy, right? Even if that blood is yours, kind of thing.
Right. But then let me transition you, because I'd love to get your feedback. And I think a lot of our listeners are interested as well. Why is Bitcoin down? Why is Bitcoin correlated to the market? Because
it's correlated to liquidity, and it's not risk off. I know they've been talking about it being risk off, but it's still risk on, even in the presence of a strategic reserve, which was passed. Right. If you had told me,
is gold up right now?
Gold has historical flight to safety.
Right. But isn't Bitcoin digital gold?
I mean, yes, but it's still in 15 theory, years old versus thousands of years old versus gold. So it doesn't have the same cachet.
Gold is up 1% today. In the last 5 days, it's up. Last month, it's, I just don't understand. Gold is
volatile,
risen.
Man. It's volatile because of the supply. It's volatile because of sentiment.
Jeez. Do you know what the 1 year gold is?
Way
year?
Up. Mm-hmm.
Just take a guess as a percentage.
25.
33.6% is gold.
Yeah.
So as David Sachs said, Bitcoin think of it as a digital Fort Knox for digital gold. So if that hypothesis is going to come out and be proven, then Bitcoin should also be up massively right now. And I just don't understand why it doesn't hold. I don't know why it's so correlated.
Craig, I don't have the answers for this,
right?
For sure. But
you're my crypto boy. You're my
crypto
bro.
Look, I'm not, I'm unfortunately not a fortune teller. And I every time I think I've got like the sentiment or the prognostication of what's going to happen, it's the opposite sometimes.
But are you still long as you've always been on Bitcoin?
Of course.
Same. Are you more positive about Bitcoin today than when we did our Anthony Popliano podcast? That was 18,000.
Oh, for sure.
And by the way, go back to that podcast. It's called Get Off Zero. It was done 2 or 3 years ago.
No, it was done like 4 or 5 years ago.
Sorry, Bitcoin was at 18K. Peter was making an emphatic plea to the audience to buy it. But I'm asking you today at 81,000, where Bitcoin is right now, are you more positive about Bitcoin future today than you were when we did that Anthony Popliano?
Yes. And the reason being is back then there was an existential risk this was before the FTX. This was all these things were happening, and there was still a risk that the government could ban this. Right. And so,
so it has an existential
risk.
Understood.
And now there's literally zero chance. There's zero chance that it can be banned. And actually it's the opposite. They have announced with David Sachs that it's going to be a reserve asset. So, who knows, Craig? I think these things need to play out over time.
Understood.
Let's jump out of the market.
That was selfishly motivated. I just wanted to hear your perspective on it, but I guarantee you other people felt the same way. They wanted.
Well, look, and this is it's not financial advice. Like shit, I don't know what's going to happen in this economy, but the speculation is that Trump has a plan, and it's going to be some short term pain. And he has to do this in order to make it, quote unquote, Trump's economy is what I keep seeing.
Okay.
So, but tariffs could be very beneficial for us. Honestly, he's not wrong about that. Yes, it's a tax, and yes, there's a lot of people who are anti-tariff, but there was a time when the U.S. government, we didn't have income tax. We only had tariffs. Right?
And the way it started is that income tax was proposed, and it was only going to affect like 1,000 Americans. And
did you hear on the All In pod how Friedberg, and that's actually, there's a great clip that he goes over the plan. It's a 4-minute clip if you search for it. And it was the last pod they just did, I guess. So anyway, I should find the link, but it's a really good 4-minute clip where Friedberg breaks down kind of what I was just articulating. But better and some more points.
Well, listen, I think it's to just keep it down to my level. And I think a lot of people are at my level, which is pretty novice. When you have an unequal tariff, meaning someone charges you more for your exports than we charge on their imports, by default, you're subsidizing that economy. Isn't that correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Like if you charge, when I sell to you and you charge me 20%, but I buy from you and I charge you 5%, it's subsidizing you.
Correct. Right.
And I don't know enough about all this, but I know that. But listen, for me, this could blow up in our face as well. So, it's, and I guess that's the reason why the market's tanking, because people that are much smarter than you and I are confused. I mean, we're always 100%. Confused. They're never confused. So, yeah.
So, speaking of confused, I want you to talk about, confusion in the workplace, in your workplace, about potentially letting someone go or not letting someone go.
Yeah. So listen, we give a lot of advice on this podcast, and what did you say? Aren't you too old to get an ass kicking? And one of the things that I want people listening, because I think, my bias tells me that the average dentist listening to this aspires to create a business that operates beyond their own hands. And I think it's great. And a lot of you may think that's so far away, that I'm never going to get out of the chair. I'm never going to be able to do that. I can't even imagine not being attached to my practice. If I left my practice for a week, it would implode. Never mind if I left it for a month or didn't do clinical dentistry. But I'm going to tell you, you're going to get there. If you're listening to what we're doing, you're going to the summits, you're engaging your team, you're in the mastermind, you're going to get there. You're probably going to get there faster than you think. And you have to envision what life looks like beyond the handpiece. And for me, I had some, what do you call them? Stage 5 clingers. Mm-hmm. I had some really, and I don't want to disparage them, because there's a person in particular that I had to let go that I actually love as a human being, a very good friend, and someone I really care about. And the problem that we were having in this organization was that this person was causing a lot of conflict.
Well, you're talking about an employee. When I say stage 5 clingers, I'm talking about patients.
Got it. Well, there's both.
Yeah.
They're going to call you and say, I heard you're not doing dentistry anymore. You're off like gallivanting at your ranch house, or I heard you're in Greece. I guess you don't care about me. I used to like it when it was, a real dental practice. Now you turn it into a business. So they're going to guilt you into that too. Even if you have people that are far better at the services you used to provide.
And by the way, can stage 5 clinger is a term of adoration for me. I still adore them. I just want to make sure people aren't like, what the hell?
Listen,
that's so rude.
They love who you were and what you represent. And in life, we all grow. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things that I've had to realize is that I'm not in the practice as much as I used to be. Mm-hmm. So the unique skill set of being emotional and helping people and coaching people, I'm not around to do that. So I like to think of myself as a bomb diffuser. Someone can come in emotional and upset, and I can meet them and sit them down in my office for 20 minutes, or take them out to lunch, or, have them over, for a 1 hour, 2 hour meeting, and coach them emotionally. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm, playing with cows at the ranch on any given Tuesday or Wednesday, the bomb diffuser is not there. So now the bombs are actually going off, causing team disrupt. So whereas maybe 10 years ago, I couldn't envision how the practice could survive without me there, I'm actually aware now of maybe that there's certain areas that I'm not adding value. I'm actually hurting the practice. So I'm aware now of like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I shouldn't be making these arrangements, because they're not working for the practice. They work for me. So I like this person. I like the way they are. They're my friend. And I'm going to help them stay here. And the team is upset. So I'm causing a problem now. So I think it's just important to, as you vision your future, as you plan out your future, being completely absent may not be the very best thing for you, but what is going to be your roles and responsibilities after you're not providing daily value? You want to have some value. But I think it's a good goal to replace yourself, but also figure out what zones you can still add value. And again, it's a big reminder to me. I'm talking to me. We podcast and we talk, but we're really talking to our prior selves. If there's somebody that's not working in your organization and they're not working because they're adding a level of drama or disconnect or conflict, no matter what you feel personally, and even though it's painful, don't allow that person to be there very long. You're going to, and again, I just can't believe I'm still doing this at this point. So it's, yeah, it's just a lesson, you know, the level of drama, the level patients were upset, team was upset. And I'm just like, no, please, please, please. It's my friend, please. You know, and what did I do? I prolonged the pain for my team. I had to go apologize to people. So now it's just, you know, it's what's best for the business.
I mean, we hear this, Greg, and, you know, especially in our mastermind retreats, we hear about the person who describes their problem in their environment. And, you know, it's sometimes often around one toxic person, but there's a fear associated with letting that person go because they're integral to the organization.
Or for me, it's emotional. It's my friend,
right? Or loyalty, right?
Loyalty.
They've been there a long time. They're just going through, you know, all these things. And so, yeah, you start looking for the confirmational bias in your decision of like, you know, this is my fault, looking for reasons to justify their prolonged existence in your practice. And it is
politicking for those people too. As a leader,
100%.
you know, your sentiment. I had a doctor that I thought was God's gift to dentistry, and I introduced him to our team as like, this is God's gift to dentistry. So everybody's like, yes, sir, aye. We're God's gift to dentistry. We won't question anything. So it
took a while for the questions to start coming because you had kind of put such preferential treatment.
So what I'm really just trying to say in summation, Pete, is I screwed up, and my influence, my beliefs, my persistence, my politicking, because I carry a lot of weight, I can get things done, didn't serve the organization. And I have to say I can't do that anymore. And I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you went through it with a doctor 7 years ago. I mean, you talk about that story where I kind of just helped you and gave you a draconian screw him, you know. So can you be, without kind of like disparaging this example, I think if I was listening to this pod, I would say, well, Craig, give me some examples of like when it's appropriate. When do you need to cut ties, right? Like, what are some things that someone is doing that you're like, okay, this isn't working anymore?
Well, I think the thing that I wish I would have done is, you know, your life expands. We've talked about this so many times. You call it the sweaty back conversation. Your life will expand in direct proportion to the amount of tough conversations you're willing to have. And we had to have a tough conversation yesterday, Pete. And you were like, wow, dude, you're amazing. Like, you gave me a big kudos because I'm just like, no more. I'm never doing this again. I'm just going to call it like what it is. Hey, you know, doctor or whatever, this type of result that you did on this patient, this is either a one-off, because we all have bad days. And I've had days where I didn't do well with a patient. But if this happens more often than not, we got a problem and we're going to have to separate from the practice. It's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
And it was always like you know, like, can I coach this person? You know, like Dwight's called me out on this. Like, Craig loves to coach. I love to coach, Pete. I love to coach. And it's actually an egotistical jackass move of mine to think that I can actually change people. It's not fair. Because whilst this was happening, there's patients that, you know, are not getting the very best care that I'd want them to have. There's a high amount of redos. And like, I'm just trying to coach people. So it's like, at a certain point, we have to think of our businesses as our own helpless little children. And we have an obligation to protect the public and protect our businesses. And you have to have direct conversations. Hey, you know, Becky, if this conflict, you're having conflicts with doctors, this doesn't fix. You know, love you, you're amazing, you're my friend, but if this doesn't get fixed, we can't have you here. And it's always like, let me try to fix these people. So my team is now very interested because I'm like, now I'm never going to try to fix anybody ever again. Show me
Wow.
who you are. I'll give you the future. I'll be the ghost of Christmas future, but I will not try to fix you. It's not fair. When you try to make someone better, it is not fair for that person. I was talking with my buddy here in Delray, Joel, and he's a great guy, but he wants his brother to be just like him. Come on, man, you should be producing $2 million a year, 3 million, whatever it is. Like, that's not what he wants to do. And to the person being coached, it's like, hey man, that's your shit. I'm me. I love me. I want to be me. I want to be a base hitter. And we just try to change people. And I think in our organization, we need everybody. We need a base hitter. We need a rock star. Just find out what people want to be and then develop them there and not try to make them something that they're not. Does that make sense, Pete? Or am I just ranting?
It does. I think too, a takeaway would be when there is consensus among your team about someone telling you that X person is the problem, they're probably right.
Well, it's the energy vampire. So it's like, patients are tough, work is tough, but if there's a lot of focus going towards one person, you have to tell that person, hey, there's a lot of smoke coming from you. And we got a very busy thing. Dentistry is stressful, work is stressful. It can't be about you.
Like, so the example yesterday, Greg, like, I was wanting to kick it down the road, have the conversation. You're like, let's just have the call now. Call them right now. And I was like, now? And you're like, now. And so I love that because I was like, okay. But lots of times in my past, I have not. So I heard this definition once about anxiety. Anxiety comes from knowing you need to do something and not taking action.
Yeah.
Right. And I think in this scenario, having that sweaty back conversation and I think when you get to an older age too, you just say, I'm going to give 0 Fs and just have this conversation. I don't want to kick it down the road and have this anxiety for 6 months in my practice or my house or my life or my children or whatever. And you just take action a little bit quicker because you care less what people think.
Well, actually, it's a little bit it's not only just that, it's you're upset with yourself. Why did I not tell this person?
Okay.
So you have to fire people. And like, I had no idea. You blindsided me. That's not fair either. You have to tell people, the way this is working. And I'm speaking, like, I can think of a couple of masterminders, like, should I keep this person? Should I not? You have to tell them, I believe in your ability to change. And when you have good days, they're really good, but you have bad days, according to the team, once every 3 or 4 or 5 days. And if this continues, you're going to have no future here.
Yeah.
And I don't want that for you, Becky. I want to see you thrive.
I think that's a great advice, because I love looking for the tactical thing. I think whereas I just blew up in my past and was like, screw it, you're out of here without any kind of warning. You're like, hey, so here's the beat on the street, so to speak, right? Here's what's going on. You're doing X, Y, and Z. This isn't compatible with the culture we have. And so I need it to stop, or else, like you said, there's no future. There's no future. There's no path forward for this. We can't operate as as your hostages, so to speak.
Yeah. You know what Tiffany said, which was so smart? Right. She said to me, we don't fire people in this organization. People fire themselves. So what does that mean? It's not about you. It's just you being a mirror to people. You must, as a business owner, leader of your practice, you must be a mirror. Hey, Johnny, this is what you're doing. If this continues, you won't have a place here. It's not my doing. Right. It's your doing. That's all we can do. I mean, you've had hard conversations with me, and my friends have had hard conversations with me, and they've told me, you keep this up, this is what's going to happen. So it's being a good friend, actually. And I think we're so scared of
being a good employer too.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at. I'm at this new stage of like, okay, how much time should I actually be spending in the practice? What's the right amount? Because when I add too much time, it could be problematic. Like, I just know that I need to step back again.
How does that make you feel from for a while, like, we talk about the nucleus of everything and you should avoid doing that, but God, it feels good sometimes to feel needed and important and things circling around you. Right. For a while until it's not. And then it's like, God dang, I am the impediment to progress.
Yeah.
So
just
now
be aware.
You are the opposite. You are the opposite. Well, I shouldn't say the opposite of progress, but you don't have to show up. anymore, Craig.
Well, it's not just that I don't have to show up. It's like, okay, what is the result of my showing up? Is it net positive, negative? So if you're going to let go and not be the nucleus of everything, you can't come in one day and stir shit up. Why are we doing blah, blah, blah? What is this? Adding my emotion. It's like, okay, I don't care. You guys run it. I trust you. And then why do we have, pink towels? like, like what
Who authorized this?
Who authorized this? This is ridiculous. So it's like, you have to you got to really be intentional, and then don't interface. I think I'm talking to myself here. This is like my own therapy. So thank you. I should be lying down, but it's like, maybe just don't interface with line level people, because you're coming in and sweeping in, and I can ruffle a lot of feathers. It's very emotional talking to me. I don't, maybe they see me as unapproachable, or I don't know. I just know that I'm at a point now where it feels good, but I don't want to, it's delicate. I don't want to add too much. I just want to be an observer and interface with my leadership team.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's what I really wanted. I mean, what's the choice? Would I rather have it this way, or feel like I did 10 years ago, that if I took my foot off the gas and put the handpiece down, we'd be out of business in 3 months?
But you've always said, like, sometimes the chokehold of the business can sometimes be the owner operator, right?
It always is. It always is.
And so, like, that actually was something happened for me, right around January. Actually, the conversation started happening around October of last year. But one of my partners, the most recent partner who had bought in probably 2021, he approached me. He's like, "Hey, I want your job." And I was like, "You want the C-suite, right? You want to do all this?" He's like, "Yeah, I think I could do really good." And to his credit, I was like, "I think you can do really good too." And so part of me, Craig, was like, "Wait a second, what does that mean for me?" I'm non-clinical, and now I'm the CMO, CEO, CFO. What does that look like for me in transition? And then, and that line that you said is like, you can't strangle something forever. There should also be a passing of the baton at some point.
Well, it should outgrow you.
100%.
So if it needs to outgrow you and be bigger than what it was, I mean, look at Disney World. What could Disney have done with it?
Look, you get stale. Like, not that I was stale with ideas, but like I had one path that I liked, right? And so I'm the screwdriver looking for screws only, and there are some nails and some hooks and things like that I just wasn't seeing. And so honestly, I kind of not resigned, but I surrendered that position to him, effective in this January. His name's Drew King, and he's done amazing. He's been amazing. And I'm currently kind of the advisor, so I help kind of tap things between the lanes and make sure that we don't go rogue in areas, but his business intuition is good, just like I thought. And so it's been really cool. It's been cool. And it's been, a lot of us view our practice, Craig, as a big child, like one of our children, right? You have Gavin, you have Sage, and you have Spodak Dental, right? Because you've grown it from nothing. And so I view Atlanta Dental Spa the same way. So it's hard to almost like hand over the child and be like, "Hey, take care of it," right? Too good. But that it needs to go to college, right? Or it needs to kind of expand.
Yeah. I mean, would you like your 24-year-old Brax saying, "Hey, Dad, I know it's 10 a.m. I really need to talk to you. My car has a flat tire and I just don't know what to do"? No, he should know, like, we have an obligation to equip our children to be self-sufficient. We only get till 18 and then they're gone. So a good parent has them understand, like, it's like a business is like a life cycle of a child. There's a toddler, there's a teenager. It's the same thing. And then eventually you have to kick it out and have it go on its own.
So the interesting part, I jumped off this key detail is like, hey, you're going to have to this isn't for me to say, I bestow this role on you now. You are going to need to get unanimous consensus among the other partners that you're the guy going forward. And in my head, right, in my arrogance, I was thinking, like, there's no way this is unanimous. Not that I was trying to hold on to it, but sure as shit, Craig, we had a meeting, everyone voted, and that was that. It was everyone felt as strongly as kind of my intuition that he should be the path going forward. So it was I gotta say there was a couple weeks of being super butthurt, and
But
thinking
why?
like,
Help me understand why. What would that mean? What is it?
because just like, how could it be that I'm not the how could it be, right? Look at all these magical things that I do, and look at these things I do behind the scenes, and look at all this, and then at the end of the day, it's like, it doesn't really, and so it just felt like putting the old horse out to pasture.
Yeah. But let me just challenge that for a second. I think as you were talking, this is really great that we're both talking about it. It's that, the screws and the nails you talked about, you and I are not in our practices a lot. So we get disconnected from what's important for them. So then if you come in with your like, we need a new, it's like if you don't work in the burger shop anymore and you come in like, we need a new fry maker. You don't know. The fries are not the problem. It's the shake machine that's the problem. So
Yep.
I think that we get disconnected from the reality of it all. And I look at it like, that's a great thing. That's the chapter that's meant to happen. It happens a lot in family businesses. When I took over the practice from my dad and I were warring with each other. It was literally like, well, Craig, I'm like, I want a computer for the front desk. Oh, you don't think we're doing it good? I'm like, no, Dad, I'm not saying that. But it's like, we should have computerized scheduling, because when mom makes an appointment, we can't do 2 appointments at once because it's on a notebook. But it is a very emotional thing, but I think it's a very good natural progression in a business owner. You should be replaced. You should absolutely be replaced.
And that is the job. We talk about this, and I think you're right. I think we've lost a lot of the audience because they're like, oh, that's not going to happen. And I think what you said, Craig, is it will happen if you make it intentional. And both of us made it intentional, right? We followed the pathway, maybe not the bulletproof pathway. We followed a pathway, and that we woke up every day with the idea to become less of the nucleus, if you will, right?
Yep.
And when that gets momentum, sometimes you nucleus your way out. Sometimes you're sitting on the outside of the cell.
Yeah. Yeah. You went from the center point to like, you're not even in the,
you're not even in the cell anymore. You can't break through the phospholipid bilayer. Isn't that what it's called?
Good one. Yeah. I like it. You're at the Golgi apparatus.
Yeah. You're just sitting outside.
Is that land? Is that a thing then? I can't remember.
Well, I think that's inside, but we digress. So, anyway, that was, that was a little hard to disclose, personally, in like a public forum.
Thank you.
It's been a little bit, keep it quiet, because I think there is a little bit of like, wow, how did this happen? But honestly, like so many things in life, Craig, sometimes what your gut punch becomes a blessing. And I'm really enjoying, now that I'm, 3 months out of it and I'm really helping in a different capacity, I'm seeing growth happen because I'm not the one in charge. And boy, that was hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at it different. I think doing well, without it's still, you're still getting the win. You know what I mean? You're
I'm still an equity holder and all those things.
Never mind. I'm not even talking about that. I'm not talking about the actual win. You grew something. You had a partner decide to hitch his wagon to you, and now he's running it. That is the way it's supposed to happen. That's exactly how it's supposed to happen. And if we would have sat down, if you would have been a Bulletproof masterminder 20 years ago, it would have been like, okay, and what are you supposed to do? And you would have said, I want to grow it. I want to take on more people. And then what do you want to do? Well, I want to get out of it. Well, do you want it to go away when you get out of it? No, I know. ADS should grow. Okay, so you don't want to work in it. You don't want to be encumbered by it. You want to be free, but you want it to grow. So what's your plan there? And we'd have probably likely arrived at, I will groom a successor. And that's how this thing can go into perpetuity. And if you were completely dissociated, and I know you're not, but from the economics of it, and it continued to grow, it would be amazing. What better thing?
Right. Yep. So well said. I won't even convolute a comment on, I think that was beautiful. I think it was great.
Yeah. Well, good for you, man. I think it's awesome. It's exactly what you should be doing and where it should be. So that's awesome.
Any other updates?
No.
Do you know I have to get my first extraction tomorrow as a dentist?
Oh, you had your wisdom teeth out though, haven't you?
Hey, very good technicality. You got me there.
Yeah.
I have an internal resorption on number 24.
Yeah, shit happens, right?
It's crazy. I think I caused it too, like scaling my own teeth at home. Something happened. I really couldn't bite down for a
Really?
while.
I don't think I'd like to. I don't think it can do that.
Yeah, I've been told that, but it was anyway. You know,
Yeah, shit happens.
shit happens, right?
I mean,
Move
listen,
on.
if you have to lose a body part, I'd rather lose a tooth than anything else.
Yeah, you just told me I'm starting to get collapsed. I'm gonna need my VDO.
Yeah, I want your video
Before we
restored. I know a guy.
Yeah, measure my Shimbashi's number and make sure that I'm not.
Yeah, can you let me know your Shimbashi number?
I will. What tomorrow?
Yeah, what's the normal 122?
I think it's, God dang, it's been a while. I think a class 1 is 17 millimeters.
We shouldn't talk about this because it's going to ruin our credibility with their dental audience.
No,
I can't listen to these guys anymore.
Dude,
they don't even know
I
the
guarantee
Shimbashi
you,
number.
not many dentists even know what a Shimbashi is.
Yes, it's a type of Japanese Wagyu cow, I think. Speaking of which, I'm under contract for more land.
I know. Congratulations.
18 millimeters plus or minus 2
is
a Shimbashi.
Is class 1
with teeth touching, measure from the edge of the gums, top of
CJ to CJ, yeah, 24 to
18
9.
plus or minus 2 millimeters.
Okay,
I'm going to call your Shimbashi 15.
Yeah, I was going to say 15 and a half.
Okay,
so stay tuned on this fascinating podcast about Pete's Shimbashi measurement.
Boy. Hey, by the way, the Bulletproof Wellness Retreat was fun. That was great.
Yeah, it was
I made
great.
some big changes.
It was great. Met some great people that I didn't know. Some were some familiar faces and some were new. And wow, like I'm always impressed by dentists.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just always impressed, maybe by the people that we meet at either Summit or something like this, but I'm always impressed by the people that we get exposed to from a dentist perspective. They're just good people, right?
Yeah, they are.
Trying to make a difference, do good by doing good. And looking for that edge. And it's, and contributing. I don't know. I'm really impressed by our network. Is what I'm saying. That the people that comprise our network, I should say, not our network, but the people that comprise our network. And so it was really good. I had some big takeaways. I'm definitely going to get that Clearly scan.
Yeah, for sure.
For what is it technically like?
It's CT angiography that's interpreted with AI.
Okay.
So it's just traditional because what I learned.
Our calcium score is bullshit now or something.
Yeah. So this is, listen, we're getting over our skis, but Peter Attia on one of his podcasts said like a calcium score of 0, is something to be celebrated, of course. But all that it's a rear looking indicator because it means the plaque you have is already mineralized. So it's a better indicator is the soft plaque. So you can have a 0 calcium score like me. And everybody's high-fiving you and thinks you're great. But then if you do CT angiography, you can see the soft plaque. And Clearly was a company that was referred to me through the Cleveland Clinic. And they have an AI-based platform that really can show in obviously 3 dimensions how much plaque you have.
And they're not expensive. Like
mine was like $2,800, which is a lot
no.
more.
But now there's a company called Clearly, I think, and I could be wrong, but I heard this on something. But it's I haven't made the appointment yet, but it's like $250.
No, Clearly is what I did.
Really?
Yeah, I did Clearly. Yeah, so it's CT angiography, but there is downside risk. It's a CAT scan. There's radioactive dye that they have to use, But it was fast. It was like a couple minutes. But yeah, it's a good baseline indicator. And like we always say, unfortunately, healthcare is not. It's so behind. It's just they give you information that's not really optimal, and you really have to be your own advocate. Unfortunately. But look,
this is where, we talk about AI a lot, Craig, and we look at it in the terms of our business and cute responses in our email and solve this problem. But I feel like this is going to be where it really benefits society and longevity. As these models get bigger and bigger and smarter, we're going to start solving more and more medical not just through AI diagnostics, but AI like protein folding and AI, like crazy things that just take a tremendous amount of compute. That's going to benefit us from a longevity perspective, right? Peter Diamandis talks about this all the time. He's like, it's something called escape velocity. You ever heard that term?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. So escape velocity, for those who don't know, is for every 1 year that you're on Earth, science has advanced your life 1 year. Right, from a longevity. So you just keep doing that, and then you can continue to live in perpetuity. And I guess in theory.
Yeah, you overestimate human beings.
And he says that, we're 5 years away from that from a scientific standpoint. And as we all know, it's not a linear move. Information and data and all these things and intelligence is not linear, right? GPT 4.5 is hundreds of times better than GPT-3 kind of thing.
Right. And the other models are even getting better. But I mean,
Grok, dude, is insane. Have you played with Grok?
I have.
Jeez.
The only reason why I still prefer GPT is because of the conversational style. I like to talk to mine. It's my best friend.
Yeah.
Knows everything about me. But the problem is of course, medicine is advancing, but political tensions are rising, wars are raging.
Yeah.
So you overestimate the good nature of human beings, because look, Rome was super sophisticated, had running water, and then we had the Dark Ages after Rome. So it'd been better to live as a poor person in Rome than as a wealthy person, 500 years later in the Dark Ages. So
yeah, but I guess my overarching is positivity. I know there's some dark things that can happen, but but man, when you see, it's almost like, Craig, so much is happening. I feel like the information, and maybe I'm too connected, but the changes that are happening right now are so fast and furious, whether that's executive orders or AI advancements or models, but you can't even keep track of them.
Of course you
It's an arms race with them. And there's so many things happening even in science and technology that they would have been revolutionary. Every one of these things would have been that's glossed over would have been revolutionary 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, and the way human beings accommodate to change is like, okay, that's the new norm.
Yeah.
A self-driving car. Okay, that's the new norm. Like, that's mind-boggling. Just my conversations with ChatGPT, the business things. Like when I was buying that land, I used it to figure out, like, how can I divide out and subsidize? And it's just
did it come up with that idea of what you're doing?
No. I came up with it, but then I used it to say, hey, I'm buying at 16,500 acre. If I divide these acres and sell them off at 19,500, I owe the bank 75%. What does it look like? And it's like, that's a great idea. Let me model that for you.
Craig, I got to tell you, my smartest and most successful friends, okay? And I mean, both. That has to be both, because I have successful friends and I have smart friends, and I have smart and successful friends.
And some are smart and unsuccessful. And
totally.
It's funny.
My smartest, successful friends spend hours a day on AI models.
Yes.
Running stuff through hours.
I know.
I actually had that conversation on the way to work today. And I was like, and he was like, dude, I'm running these models through and I'm asking it questions and I'm feeding it data. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm creating contingencies in my businesses. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, dude, it's insane. He's like, it's insane. He's like, it's literally like like a PhD of like strategy.
Yeah. I mean, it's like having a best friend that was super smart 6 weeks ago, but now much smarter. I wonder, is it making us less smart because now I'm outsourcing all of my...
No, I don't believe so. Well, maybe, but I believe that there is a vicarious lift, meaning that you have to still come up with a lot of the inputs, right? And you have to pressure test some of the things that it's being said. So you're auditing stuff. So I think that there's a little bit of lift, quite honestly, right? Like, I think you become...
Well, it's like having a smart friend makes you smarter.
You become more like it, and it tries to become more like you.
Yes. I load all my health data in there too.
Dude, so, that is the biggest hack. People, I talked about that actually at the summit, I think, the health retreat rather.
Yeah.
And, some people are like, oh, all of your health information. I'm like, I don't care if the world knows what my cholesterol score is.
My son's eerily scared of it. Like, he's upset. He's like, why are you telling it that? Why do you tell it that? Because I'll go to ChatGPT. I'm like, what do you know about me? It's like, it rattles off everything. Mm-hmm. You're working on this dental lab. You're talking about 3D printers. It just knows everything. My son's very scared of it.
Yeah. Well, I don't feel like my shit's that interesting, quite honestly. Like that it's nothing I'm doing is top secret. But to create your own health GPT is amazing. My doctor probably thinks I'm a psychopath at this point for the questions I ask, but yeah, loading all your results and your data and your Clearly scans. And, actually, Craig, my son broke his thumb recently. And I got the x-ray and we had to wait 24 hours for the diagnosis because it had to be read. And I told my wife when she got the scan, I was like, hey, get me a copy of the disc. Get me a copy of the disc. And she's like, okay. She's like, I got the disc. I was like, all right. Shit, I loaded it into Grok. There's a hairline fracture on the base of the thumb, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Sure as shit, Craig, if we didn't get a call that night, I couldn't see anything. Sure as shit, if we didn't get a call that night, it was like, yeah, it's a little fracture.
Yeah.
I was blown away. Like someone who had, look, I have a little bit more aptitude for looking at x-rays just from radiographs in dentistry, right? So I can kind of like, I kind of understand.
I can't see broken bones. I can when you point them out.
Right. And I couldn't believe it, dude. I was blown away. I was like, holy shit. If I was and that's, again, not to go on this rant, but if I was a diagnostician, I was a lawyer, I was something where, that's why I think dentistry is, once again, the most beautiful profession in the world. We are AI resistant, buddy.
Yeah.
For now. We are not robotic resistant, but we are AI resistant.
Right. If I was a lawyer, I'd be a little bit nervous.
Dude, and I talked to my lawyer friends. I'm like, are you worried? And they're like, nah, that's shit. That's bullshit. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about?
I know. Well, listen, everything happens slowly until it's sudden. And that's what happens. No one just comes and eats your lunch. These things are happening slowly.
It'd be interesting to start watching
law school applications.
Matriculation.
Yeah.
Or applicants, right? And even, I can imagine that surgery residencies are going to go crazy. Everyone's going to be competing for something that you physically have to do something with your hands.
Yep. HVAC, brother.
HVAC, plumbing, builders,
all those. I got to go to an Ask Me Anything call.
Oh,
with
that's
our
right.
mastermind.
That's right. Okay, buddy.
But thank you for this.
See you, bud.
Thanks for listening, people.